Um, one is, Katie, remember to press the record button. You did it. The second piece is, Katie, if you could throw in the chat the link to sign up for the UVI webinar, if you want to just stay in touch with our future offerings, make sure you get the links to webinars we're going to do in the future. This series is going to be ongoing, so we're going to have a free webinar every other month for the rest of the year. That's the plan going into next year. So more goodness where this came from. Want to talk briefly about community agreements today, which is just be chill, babies, be kind, be respectful. Let's have fun, and let's have a rich conversation. I'm very confident in our collective ability to do that. With that, I'm going to dive into the questions. So, oh, but not before we let Dora in. Oh my gosh. Hello, Dora. Okay. So first of all, panelists, I would just love, I already gave you a little introduction, but if you could tell me a little about yourselves, what you do, and who your customers are, like what, you know, what your business, who your business really serves, that would be great. And Will, you're on top of my screen, so if you want to go first, that'd be great.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Nice to meet everybody. Happy to be here, and kind of honored, I guess, to be a part of this. I have been doing this grazing. This is kind of my third year doing it, but my first year with enough animals to feel like I can really kind of pursue it. I can talk a little bit about what I think enough animals is later, which is an unattainable goal, it seems like, so far in my grazing career. But my kind of main customers are typically private landowners, usually 2 to 3 acres. And I try to get them to bring all their neighbors in on it to expand projects. It's kind of been my strategy this year. A few larger companies, and then some interest from some municipalities, and that hasn't really happened yet, but those kind of things tend to move pretty slowly, I think. So working on that. I have a wife and a 2-year-old and a baby on the way in the next month. We run about 100 and got about, let's see, I'll be breeding 80 nannies this year. Then I'm pretty much keeping most of the females from that, sell the wethers. I've got 10 acres, which doesn't do me a whole lot of good, because it's covered in snow half the year or mud. Live in White Salmon, Washington, Columbia Gorge. So, and I'm trying to, right now, because of the family situation, I'm trying to stay as close as I can and build up a local customer base, because the whole reason I got out of the TV was because I was on the road all the time. So I don't want to get into grazing to be on the road all the time.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Madison?
So I'm Madison, of course. So I started Salt of the Earth about 2 years ago. Just for context, I also work relatively full time. So like Will, I also kind of stay really close to home with my operation. We had a really bad fire come through last year. And so that even more so inspired me to try to assist our neighbors as best we could. And so being very conscientious about price range and just, you know, kind of really trying to be helpful to the individuals around me. But yeah, I have about 5 years experience in grazing, and yeah, just loving every minute of it.
How have?
Huh?
How many sheep do you have?
So we have about 60 sheep right now, and then we have about 25 goats. So depending on the job, we kind of either omit the goats or we include them. Our typical job size is anywhere from, I would say, 3 to 10 acres. And so we're definitely probably dealing with a bit different vegetation than what Will is in kind of Western Washington. Staying the heck away from brambles and blackberries if I can. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Cole, tell us about Shepherdess.
Hello. Hello, ya all. This is really exciting. Thank you, Beth, for the invitation. Katie, and awesome to meet y'all, my comrade grazers. Later on, I would be really interested to actually know a little bit of who I'm talking to, who are grazers, who are aspiring grazers, make sure that I am answering questions that are helpful for y'all. So my name is Cole Bush, Brittany Cole Bush. I go by my middle name. And I'm the owner operator of Shepherdess Land and Livestock. I've been in this field for 14 years now. A lot of it, I didn't have my own sheep, but I stayed in the game. Learning, continuing education in this is critical. The work requires knowledge and wisdom that is experiential and also passed through people who have made all of the mistakes that you are going to also make. So we're based out of Ventura County, about an hour and 20 minutes north of Los Angeles. I'm from San Diego. Currently, we're operating around 580 head, primarily sheep over goats, although the goats really are the ticket in our landscape, but the sheep do a really great job. My genetic selection, I've chosen hair sheep, Dorper Katahdin crosses, and then the Spanish Boer cross for my goats. I think it's very critical to choose the right animals for your context, and my animals stand up against flood and drought and everything in between. And so I think that's really an important thing to note about my business. My business model is a sole member LLC, and our main driver or main revenue driver is prescribed grazing. The state of California has adopted prescribed grazing as the name for our business, as for targeted grazing, contract grazing as an ecosystem service. So I am using prescribed grazing as what we call our services. Meat and wool are not a part of our revenue drivers. Wool is beginning to be more so that, but that's more of an educational and passion project for me. So it is not something that I'm requiring to be or aspiring it for it to be a profitable aspect. It's just something for quality of life, just like me having donkeys. That's for quality of life. Main customers right now, I'm all about quality of customers and not quantity of customers. I've been in the business long enough to not kind of navigate and know how that works, and that takes time to build the skill set and the social, the connections, and all of the kind of qualitative aspects of our work. It takes time to develop the ability to get bigger contracts. So currently, we're contracted with a large developer and LA County Fire Department, Ventura County Fire Department, LA County Sheriff's Department, and other public organizations. I love working with land conservancies and schools. And let's see, who are my main customers? How many animals? Is there anything else? Oh, meat and wool, not a part of my business, but I am most driven by supporting those who, very similarly to me, came into this as a first generation, no agricultural background in my family for multiple generations. And it's really freaking hard to do that. And so to me, I want to support others getting into this business. And I think it's a really critical time for us to think about having industry colleagues, competitive colleagues, instead of this cutthroat bid ourselves to the bottom. If you do have competition, it's about working together and not trying to perpetuate a business that actually in the end kind of screws everybody. Because if you're bidding on a project, for example, getting less than what you need to make it make sense for your bottom line, it just isn't worth it. So that is my little spiel on who I am, what I do, and who are my customers.
You did so good. You're like Miss America style level of answering that question. Yeah. So yeah, tell me a little more about I'd love to hear from each of you just about who, how how you find your customers and how do you manage customer expectations. Like somebody, I also see in the chat, like what makes a quality customer? Like who are you really looking for? And like, you know, Madison, I know you said you're kind of looking to work to neighbors. Will, I know you're looking to stay close to home, but are there other things that you guys are really seeking out when you're looking for a client? Will, I'm going to pick on you again. You can go first.
Okay. Most, I would say my customers have come from, I've gotten a lot of customers from referrals from another grazer, Craig Madsen, who I know Madison knows and Katie knows. And
And he's my neighbor. Yeah.
I saw Olivia is on here. I think she's another grazer in Washington, who's worked with Craig, and he's been really good about any people from my kind of region that contact him, you know, sending them on to me, which has been huge and very helpful kind of getting started. Other than that, I kind of cold call people. I just look for places where I want to put animals and then contact them and tell them that they need animals and why. And then that, you know, can go either way, but it's kind of a, to me, I really resonate with the finding the quality customers, because that's, you know, it's really hard to put so much effort into a job that's only going to happen once. And one of the things that I'm really struggling with dealing with private landowners is I live in an area where people tend to own a lot of people own 20 acres, and they've never put any money into maintaining their land ever before. And then the goats, they hear and they're like, oh, that's cool. And they try it. But you know, I'm starting to get the sense that it's a novelty, and that maybe that novelty doesn't translate to long-term relationships. So trying to, you kind of have just a minute to give people an elevator pitch of what this is. And it's so much to teach people. And I still have so much to learn about it, but it's so much to teach people in such a short time to really get them on board to want to have kind of a continuing relationship. And, you know, I'm kind of learning that you really just have to focus on the people or the organizations that's going to work with, because you know, it takes a while to learn a job and where to put the fences and just all the logistics of doing a job. And then you don't really see immediate benefits in that there's less material. You know, there is a fuel reduction that you can see immediately, but you're not going to see some of the other benefits unless this is something that you continue doing, which is kind of why I'm, you know, as my herd grows, I'd like to focus on organizations that have a budget and a line item for whatever, taking care of the place, and then move there. So I think that's yeah, I think that sorry, I took the questions and wrote some stuff out first so that I could kind of stay on track and not ramble.
Y'all are all going so above and beyond. Thank you. Yeah, so kind of same question for you, Madison, and I'm curious to hear from all of you too, like especially if you're working in a residential context, like how do you manage expectations about what the land is going to look like after too, and like maybe just like how long it will take to really start to see an impact. Anyway, not to add more, but
yeah, for sure. So I guess firstly, just to kind of get our word out and how we even started to get into this business, we were obviously really influenced by Craig. He's kind of the go-to guy that's been in the business for 25 years and doing it by himself, which still blows my mind. But outside of
dog
that,
also.
Yeah, exactly.
The dog.
Yeah. But yeah, so outside of that, just to really kind of bolster at least like our neighbors, we've been doing a lot of flyers and mailboxes, posting on Nextdoor, of course. I know, Beth, you see my ads on there all the time. And then hanging stuff up in the grocery stores. We actually are also working with the DNR. We're on the DNR contractor list. And so that's also been really helpful. And people have been showing interest there. But But outside of that, as far as managing expectations goes, we kind of tell folks, you know, we want to leave some things behind to keep, you know, that protective layer on the soil, of course. But we do kind of say, you know, the sheep and the goats will probably leave skeletons of plants. It's not going to be a clean mode effect. So we go in and we kind of have that presumption of what it'll probably look like. And then, of course, like sharing with our customers or potential clients, you know, jobs from similar contracts that we've done so they can get an idea before we jump into stuff too. So they can have that nice visual. So.
And Cole, I know you're working on a little bit different scale with a little bit different customers. So how are you finding your people and managing them?
Yeah, so I would say there are different phases of how you approach getting clients. Are you brand new to the game?
Mhm.
You have relationships in your region, and what are your biggest needs? Actually, I looked at what are my biggest needs or gaps for me to build a solid foundation to build my business. What I realized is I was going to need off-season ground that I didn't have. So when I first started, my approach was to identify who could be clients or partners that have what I need, and how could we build a long-term mutually beneficial relationship. And that happened to be a foundation down the road that had 300 acres and a school there that would be perfect for my off-season ground. It's all star thistle. Star thistle has really high protein content and mustard. And they saw, oh my gosh, it would be a benefit to have these folks here. I made sure that they understood the value and what it cost me to do the job at different times of year. And we were able to negotiate. They would pay me during peak season when I can make the most amount of money per acre. And then in the off season, we found something that would work for both of us. And so when I started building what my clientele could be at the foundation, I made a lot less money in the first year than I did the second year, because I really invested in building relationships to fill gaps that I had starting. Mm-hmm. And through those relationships, then it started kind of like the buzz of Shepherdess being in town started to happen based off of these strategic partnerships. I like to call them partnerships instead of clients, because what I feel is a quality client is a client that is acts more as a partner. We identify the goal. They take time to really understand our process and what we're looking at in animal health and the ecology. As a partner, they're going to do what they can to understand why we do it and support us in succeeding in that. That is one of the most important parts of a quality client, is at least one person in the organization or your private land, your private landowner. You want them to really want to engage with understanding the process. If they understand the process, that this is an ecological approach and it's not a one-time solving all your problems, and they understand that a healthy ecology is ecology that's more resilient to some of the things that we are facing, both climatically and also on the invasive species side and dysfunctional processes, ecological processes, they will understand that it's important to have long-term relationships. At that point, when you start finding qualities of a quality client, that's when you really start massaging how you're approaching the project in cost, really trying to find a way that it works for both parties. And that's really critical, I think, when you are coming in, is not undercutting yourself, but understanding the landscape of what the marketplace can bear, and kind of plan accordingly. Another component of the quality customer. Okay, let me move back to phasing, and I will step back because I know we have other grazers. So Beth, you can raise your hand and say, cut it.
I listen to talk all day. Keep going, baby.
Yeah, great. Phase two is when we start having our quality contracts or our landowner partners, is then you start looking at who's next door. And you plant the seed with your quality partner as a client to suggest talking to their neighbor and saying, hey, if you get your neighbor involved, then we can reduce our transportation cost, and we start spreading the love. And fire doesn't care about fence lines or property lines. So the sell is pretty easy. If your neighbor is doing prescribed grazing and the other neighbor getting it's just exponentially better when you're managing and treating a swath of land, reducing the cost for everyone, reducing the cost and headache on my part. So you have your quality clients then start doing some of the work for you. And then it's an exponential growth situation until you get to a point where you have a whole neighborhood that is grazing, and you have pieced together 10 acres or 15 acres or 5 acres, and it starts making it more viable. Because one of our biggest problems when we're starting is that we can only grab 1 acre or 2 acres or a half of an acre, depending on your scale. That is a lot of transportation. And then at the end of the day, you just feel like you're a truck driver. And that's not what we're in this for. What we're in this for is, well, everyone has a different quality of life and context. Mine is probably too insane for yours, but it's, I know that we all are in this because there is a qualitative magic piece within us that wants to do good in the world and participate in our regional ecology and climate resilience and food and fiber, and in some cases a lot of cash money. But that's not why we do this. The cash money goes away in the off season anyway, so we're not in this for the money. Sometimes, but not really. Phase 3, word of mouth. You are doing so great that big clients like a fire department is like, these are the go-to guys or gals or human beings. When you start getting anything past 10 grand in a contract, most public agencies have to put it out for bid. It's called an RFP or an RFQ, which means you are going to have to write a competitive bid against other grazers. And in some cases, if you don't even have any other grazers, they're going to have to go and fish around and find a grazer in another location just to get that RFP. But if you build relationships, there's a good chance that you're going to continue to build that relationship. If you think about it this way, if you make your point of contact in a public agency, if you make it them look good and their job easy, they're going to advocate for your operation to be that contractor. They're also going to be more likely to be supportive and understanding when things go awry. And we all know who is in this, the things are going to go awry. So those are some of the pieces. I can extrapolate more, and that's the end of that story.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Cole. So it sounds like you're really flexible on your pricing, and it's about like finding a client that's a good partner and then working to make that successful for both of you. I saw you nodding along a lot, Madison. So I'm curious like what you have to add to that. And I'm also curious how you do pricing, because I know you also have a very flexible approach.
Yeah, of course. I mean, kind of leaning into what Cole said, you know, she kind of hit a lot of points that, you know, I see a lot of kind of transpire in my business. You know, especially kind of having, you know, that refer a friend, like, hey, if, you know, if we could have your neighbors get in on this, we could cut your price by X cost, because that's ultimately going to save as a grazier, you know, truck time, you know, loading animals, all of that headache. So yeah, as far as pricing goes, we are pretty flexible. We initially started at roughly the $300 to $500 per acre range. We never charged off per head per day. But that seems, for at least our context in our area, because there's not a lot of individuals who are privy to this style of vegetation management. You know, the education piece there, as far as, you know, omitting the use of herbicides and pesticides, you know, speaking to what Cole said, again, like just really trying to find your ideal client, and those people will go to bat for you all day long. But yeah, $300 to $500 per acre is generally where we're at. We're kind of getting to the point of where, since I work full time, and I hope next year I can be doing this full time. But we are charging a little bit more than the $300 to $500 per acre. We're generally just saying like, hey, it's $1,000 for us to come to your place because I work full time. I have to make it worth it on my end. And either people are going to see the benefit of that or not. And it just, at the end of the day, it's what we feel comfortable charging, amidst everything else going on. My husband, he has his own business. We kind of work simultaneously within our grazing business together. He's my best employee, even though he doesn't really get paid. But yeah, does that kind of answer it for you?
Yeah, yeah. How about you, Will? How are you pricing contracts?
I kind of started the same. I'm when people ask me now, I'm kind of just like, it's about $1,000 an acre, but every job is very different. And it kind of what Cole was saying, I live in a place where I have to feed hay potentially 6 months out of the year. I don't have a 1,000-acre ranch that has enough to kind of keep them going. So, it's a little dynamic with people that have something to offer me versus, people that just want something done. It's a little, I have one, I had one person contact me from Mosier, Oregon, which is just across the Columbia River from me, and I was able to turn that from a one-person job into about 15 different landowners coming together. And they don't have, it's kind of like a unofficial development. Everybody's got 10 to 20 acres in that particular area. There's no homeowners association, but everybody's friendly, and it's definitely got a sense of community. And kind of what I told them is I don't want to be out there looking for property. I'm not a surveyor. And same thing, fire doesn't care. Like if you do it and you don't do it, it's not really maybe that beneficial to you. It's kind of, it's a landscape level application ultimately. And, I'm not at the size yet to be able to do the whole area, which is about 150 acres probably. But, and then ironically, or not ironically, but just the way things is, there was a large fire that bore down on them, and the people that I had grazed for were in a level 3 get out now evacuation notice, and the fire was it was one draw away from where I had grazed. So, and I have not, that's just kind of winding down. I'm actually heading over there this afternoon to talk to one of the people where I'm going to continue grazing. I had to break that up into stretches. And the reason I had to break that up is because I underbid that project because I wanted it so bad. I was like, I had this vision of like, this is the community, this is the thing, da, 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 da. And as I started doing it, I was like, man, I am losing my tail on this job. And my wife works, right now, this is pretty much all I'm doing unless I'm picking up side work. And I don't feel comfortable really being too unavailable just because of the nature of things. I want to be able to get there if I need to. But to kind of come back to the pricing, I underbid this job and my pricing has gone up. It kind of goes, it's so flexible. It's really hard, but I do have a spreadsheet and I track my hours with an app called Clockify, where you can basically clock in and clock out. I keep track of mileage, and I try and really track all of my expenses and time doing things, even from bidding to thinking about things to managing animals when they're not getting on jobs. And I kind of factor all of that into what the cost is. And since the cost is so high, I there's a scale I think that you have to get to kind of make it start to work. And it depends for everybody. For me, I'm trying to make it my main income stream. And you just have to price accordingly. But I kind of tell people, I've started doing a day rate for some people, $700 a day. I think it'll take 4 days. And I'm the camera equipment industry, which runs off of rentals, they will do, they'll be like, you can rent this piece of equipment for this much per day. But if you rent for a week, we'll only charge you for 5 days. If you rent for 2 weeks, we'll only charge you for, 4-day weeks. And I'm kind of tossing that around in my head as maybe something that makes it a little more a la carte for people, which is a little trickier. But I'm now finding that I have so much work. If people want to cut a job short, that's fine, because I need to keep moving forward anyways. So I don't know if that's helpful.
Sounds like the moral of the story there is to just stay really flexible.
Yeah, you just have to talk to your partners, as Cole said, and I just try and be really open with people and tell them what it costs me to do it. And I think a lot of people think, this is something I talked to Katie about, like moving away from thinking of goats as machines or tools. I find a lot of people kind of think that grazing might serve the same purpose as having a masticator come in or whatever. Goats eat blackberries. They defoliate blackberries, but trying to be like, if you had a machine do this, it would probably cost this much. We're offering a different service, but it's still going to be more affordable than that, but
This is so interesting as another grazer. I think it's so cool to see and hear how other people are doing it, and we have differences in different contexts. But at the end of the day, we have similar things. I wanted to tag on, Will. I think this might be helpful for audience when we talk about pricing. What I do is I look at what the market will bear, what my cost is, and then, and of course, planned profit, what I ultimately want to come away with. And then I structure my price between that. We have to get out of the mindset of what are my expenses and then price based off of just our expenses. Because remember, there are times every day that we're not grazing for getting paid, we're paying for it. So you have to take into consideration your costs in the off season.
sure, yeah,
Basically double what your expenses are, because you have that off-season cost. And then look at what the market will bear. What are comparables going on with dudes with weed whippers on the side of hills with poison oak? In some cases, it's a $3,000 an acre for a fire department to do that. So what are we going to do? We want to be competitive. It might cost us, in some other context, we might say, oh, $1,000 an acre. No. If they're paying $3,000, let's find something. Those are juicy contracts. When we know that they would pay otherwise really high, we're going to bid it to what the market will bear and be fair about it, but not undercut ourselves and not try to give public agencies deals. We don't need to give deals. We're not the people to be exploited in this situation. So I just wanted to say, what will the market bear? What is our cost? What is our planned profit, ideally, or goals, and then work accordingly.
Yeah, that's great advice. This hour is burning by. It's killing me. We should have made this 3 hours long.
Oh.
I want to thank you for asking a question. I really want to know what each of you like what is something that you wish other people understood about what you do that you feel like people don't understand?
I just kind of wish people would get it's not really about what I would do, but I wish people would get out of this mindset of, I don't do anything with my land because it's natural and that's the best thing for the land. I think that's a, and ultimately I think it's just a veil of laziness or lack of time. But there's a lot of retired people that have time to, when they have tractors and mowers, and they don't, they could do other things. But I kind of wish people would understand that things need to be managed. We're not in a situation where we're in a natural,
Well, and that we live in relationship with land, right? That like we actually are influenced, and like we influence and are influenced by our landscape, and it's like an active two-way relationship, not just like put a house there and then drink your coffee.
And another thing, this is something I get all the time, and then I'm done. People say, "Oh, I got a place you can feed your goats," and it's like I would not have these goats if I did not have a target or a prescription grazing business. Like I'm I sell goat. I sell all my wethers and culls. But I'm not, if I was going to make money in goats, I would probably be in Texas and have 15,000 of them. I'm not going to make money off of having a couple hundred nannies in Washington. So it's really, uh, if people, it's hard for people to understand why they should pay to feed your animals, which obviously we all know that, but that's something I get all the time. And what I'm trying to do is figure out a way that I could start another kind of enterprise where I could help people with larger chunks that maybe aren't going to pay or can't afford the service or the prescription grazing, where I could work out a situation to be able to utilize that land to focus on a meat enterprise or something that could flow in and out of my grazing enterprise to increase, to be a buffer for the herd sizes that I need to do certain jobs, but maybe not take the same amount of labor.
That's exactly what Madison and I are talking about doing. So I think that's a great idea.
Cool.
Madison, what do you wish people understood about what you did that you feel like they don't?
Well, I mean, in a lot of ways, I feel like I'm really blessed to do this work. You bust your behind, getting the animals there, getting them loaded in the trailer, putting up the fence. And, I mean, at the end of the day, the majority of the time what the client sees is a bunch of cute little fuzzy animals grazing. And so I think that's a lot of expectation, with potential clients and partnerships is that, sometimes, and honestly, I don't even want to say they're potential clients or partnerships at that point in time, because they're just diminishing what you do and all the effort and time that goes into it. And, some people just kind of think that, oh, you just bring the animals in and you drop them off and then you leave. It's like, no, there's a lot of work that goes into it, like
364 other days.
Yeah, exactly. Feeding them through the winter, assisting them in lambing and kitting and all of that, death loss, dealing with that. It's, at the end of the day, it's, one of the best businesses to be in, because equally you're providing an awesome service. But it is really fun to make people smile and just like stoked about the animals too, and get the opportunity to educate them. But just everything that happens behind the scenes of the production when the fuzzy animals are there eating your knapweed. Getting a full broad spectrum picture of that would be great if people understood that better.
I'm gonna echo that, and I'm gonna keep this short. What I wish people knew who were interested in this business, if anyone follows what we do, we make it look way too. It's not. We make it look too good.
Not all dancing and cute puppy dogs and.
Yeah. It's not that way. I would want to say that I would want folks to know that this is a lifestyle choice that happens to also be a job. And we're not doing it for the money. We're doing it for the well-being, our contribution to good, and positive impact and change. And I would want people to know who are coming into this, how many times you will be on your knees crying and pondering the meaning of life and experiencing trauma and grief in losing livestock, confronting natural disasters, gosh, you name it, challenging relationships behind the scenes, because you can't sometimes be the person you want to be to friends and family. This is probably the hardest job you could ever imagine doing, but the reward is so immense and so unique. So the illusion of this being a beautiful, bucolic, epic job that sounds really cool or looks cool on your business card, it's so much more than that. And it's okay. I think 1% of 100 people will stay in this business for more than 5 years. And that's okay. That's okay. I think that it's okay to have short runs because it's so hard. And that's why we need more people in this, because I think the industry is only going to get better with more and more people contributing the creativity, heart and soul in public education.
Okay,
Well,
Cole, I also want to give you a couple minutes to talk about Grazing School of the West. So can I just platform you for a second and tell me what it is?
Yeah. And I'll be quick because I would love to answer a question or two. I talked about Shepherdess Land and Livestock as my grazing business in its 4th year. But like I said earlier, my biggest passion is supporting the next generation of folks or established folks in land and livestock to get into the world of prescribed grazing as a main driver and revenue source. So Grazing School of the West has been a long time project of mine that was inspired by Fred Provenza and his book, The Art and Science, Wisdom, Shepherding Spain and France is where I went to go learn how they're training the next generation. And it's taken me a long time building my own business to recognize the context in the American West. How can we support the next generation? So here we are, almost 10 years later in the making and now live, Grazing School of the West, and we're starting to increase our collaborations and our big fall programming. It's so exciting. We're partnering, Grazing School of the West is partnering with the new Cowgirl Camp friends to put on a Grazers Intensive with holistic management framework being taught through the lens of prescribed grazing as a business, and to really expose people to what this work is. We have new folks and established folks and folks in the middle that we're serving. And so I encourage you, if you would like to learn more, grazingschoolofthewest.com. You can sign to the newsletter. All of the socials will start engaging folks with other learning opportunities. Think of it more as a network than a school. I'm not an academic institution kind of gal. I'm a learning by doing gal, and I want to support those folks who want to go that route in the trades. And that's what Grazing School of the West is. And I'm really excited to be entering this part of my career so I can share and learn at the same time, because there's so many ways to do this. But at the end of the day, we have to care for the land, we have to care for the animals, and most importantly, we have to care for each other and ourselves. And without further ado, we're totally filled up. Applications closed in the fall, but we had so much interest. Stay tuned for the next collaboration with the new Cowgirl Camp Intensive for next year, as well as collaboration with White Buffalo Land Trust in Santa Barbara County and others throughout the West to be announced in the fall.
Dope. Great pitch. Feel free to throw questions in the chat. I'm seeing a lot of y'all have been so on top of this, answering these in the chat as we go. But if you have a question you feel like hasn't been answered, please throw it in the chat now. And while we do that, I'm going to pull up, we have a couple other opportunities upcoming for education aside from Grazing School of the West. I'm going to put those dates. All right. We have a series of virtual courses coming out through AVI. So the first one coming up is going to be Introduction to Holistic Management. It's going to be taught by Katie and myself, and we're going to talk about the basic principles behind good grazing management, ecosystem management, the tools that we can use to influence ecosystems, and then how to make decisions that actually support a livelihood that builds the future that we want to have. And there's lots of other good stuff, including financial planning, land planning, grazing planning, and ecological monitoring upcoming. And in terms of in-person courses, there's holistic financial planning and land planning being hosted at the Lazy R in Spokane upcoming. Grazing School of the West, a new Cowgirl Camp collab. And if you want to learn more about any of those things, you can check out Avi's website. Is there any questions in the chat? Sorry, I'm looking to see if anything else is filtered out.
One question we did have, it was sort of answered, was about liability insurance. It sounds like some people looking to break into this are struggling to find liability insurance for their grazing businesses.
Yeah, I see there was one recommendation of an agent in here, but do any of our panelists have advice around on how to find an insurance agent or even explain to them what the heck you're doing?
I just put mine in the chat. DL Insurance. I think they're out of the Central Valley, California. I don't know if they work out of state. They have figured out how to classify us. Very important to decide what your NAISC code is. Are you a sheep farmer, goat farmer, landscape person? That's really important. So if you go onto government platforms like sam.gov, when you plug those codes in, that's when you'll be notified when there's opportunities. And your insurance person is going to need those too, because the policy might be a farm policy or a landscaper or a contractor. And those are all really important things to articulate for you based off of your business model. If you sell lamb or meat, wool, whatever, that's going to make you different than someone like me who is primarily a contractor for providing a service. Josh Martinez, you can tell him I sent you.
Yeah, insurance is definitely one of the biggest difficulties with this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've had luck with James Judson that Olivia mentioned. Looks like Madison. She's giving a thumbs up there too. So
yes, exactly. And yeah, kind of echoing what Cole said. So my business, it is primarily insured as a contracted service. So it is a finicky thing to figure out, but I think between two of those gentlemen, you'll probably get some assistance.
Awesome, thank you. We have a question here about just like stock density. I'm sure it varies per job and based on the vegetation, but how many sheep or goats do you usually put on an acre, and for how long do they stay there?
I put all of my animals everywhere for as long as it takes. I've only got 2 guardian dogs, so I run my herd, and I feel, I haven't come across a situation, some people would like me to do a couple of blackberries in their backyard that you could probably put 3 goats there for a month, but I don't. For me, just as a management thing, the whole herd goes everywhere, and I'm just not really set up to run a split herd, which comes challenge weaning time. I know that, Paul, you don't really, your focus is on the grazing, and I don't know, I feel like we've chatted about this a little bit. I don't know kind of what your breeding rates are. I'm just breeding everything I have that I keep. So, managing that and getting weathers out and stuff is a thing, but yeah. So I'm probably running 8,000 pounds of animals is what I estimate. I haven't drug them over a scale. I've got a double deck trailer. I can fit the whole herd in, and I usually do pretty small pens, biggest of maybe a 1/4 acre, and move them, which is very labor intensive. In some jobs, I think I'm learning that I don't know if it's better. It might actually be better to just do a bigger pen, and maybe it takes an extra day, but it's a lot less labor, which is helpful for burnout, and just kind of keeping the jobs going. Less wear and tear on fencing. Fencing's expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep.
I'll echo that too. I mean, I pretty much shake everybody depending on the job that we're on. Currently, we're trying to break into the agriculture kind of scene and helping our fellow stewards in that arena. So we're currently grazing a Christmas tree farm with our sheep. And so in vegetation, that's mostly things like knapweed, China lettuce, things of that nature. We do use bigger paddocks just simply because I work full time and I need to delegate my either mornings before work or evenings after work to move animals. So we're roughly about, I would say at max capacity, like 80 head per acre. We usually build 4 nets of fence and move them every day-ish, every other day. So
quick, my context is different at different times of the year. We'll go through forage faster than other times. Like right now we're ripping through 2-3 acres a day with well, let's see, probably like 2 acres a day with 100 head in the brittle environment of Topanga Canyon right now. So we're going like twice as fast as we generally do on our big contracts, like a 500 acre contract that I bid per week instead of per acre. We throw 600 head on it, and we build bigger paddocks, and we move the paddocks every third day about, because we're throwing up 15 to 20 nets at a time, and so that in canyons that are insane. So we have to buy ourselves some time so the people don't die. So yeah, we have a different context. We're brittle.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It changes so much throughout the season too, and
Sure.
even moving the herd from different kinds of forages. I find that it takes my goats anyway. If I'm running on grasslands and I move them into brush, it seems to take a day or so for them, for their gut, what I'm assuming is their gut microbiome it probably gets all tore up and destroyed and has to kind of reset itself on a completely different, forage, maybe more tannins or whatever it is. It's different. That's something that, I try and account for. And that's kind of part of managing client expectations. If you put goats in and they're like, oh, it didn't seem like that, and then the next day they're like, whoa, like it takes a day or two for them to get adjusted to it. It's like they were eating French fries for a week and now they're eating, I don't know, pizza. You ate straight French fries and went to pizza, probably wouldn't feel very good. But then you can settle into your pizza rut and you can just cruise.
There you go. All right. Thank you all so much. This hour just flew by. I can't believe we're already at the end of it. Everyone, please sign up for the UVI mailing list. Our topic for the next webinar, we're still finalizing the lineup, but we're going to be talking about the intersection of social justice and regenerative agriculture and how to tend to our human community, which is so important. Let's see, I'm going to throw up websites for these organizations. So there's a website for UVI, the website for my other organization, Roots of Resilience, which hosts New Cowgirl Camp, which is a 5-day intensive introductory course for women that want to get started in regenerative agriculture. And we've got website for Grazing School of the West. So many good mashups between Cowgirl Camp and Grazing School of the West in the future, which I'm so excited about. Yeah, and just thank you all so much for your time. I can't wait to see you in a couple months. Bye-bye.
Thank you.